The Antiracism Collective is a group of ADA academic and professional staff and HDR candidates committed to understanding the role of the university in tackling racism and racialisation both within the institution and more broadly. We will be hearing from a number of the project leadership of the collective, beginning with Professor Ramaswamy Harindranath. Professor Harindranath is a professor in the School of Arts and Media and the academic lead for the Antiracism Collective. Please make him welcome.
Well, there are quite a few of you, many more than I had thought there would be, which is terrific. My name is Ramaswamy Harindranath, Hari for short. I live and work in Gadigal and Bidjigal, unceded Gadigal and Bidjigal lands, and I pay my respects to First Nations people and communities. Now, the Antiracism Collective came together, was conceived, was born in 2021, and we had an enormous, frenetic number of activities, discussions, arguments, debates, all around identifying how to conceive of and articulate the problem. And we decided on this. How do we understand racism, and what is the role of the university in tackling racism and racialization, both within the institution and more broadly? We were aware that this is an issue that, alas, cannot be resolved in a year. But we wanted something to conceive and put together a question in such a way that we inaugurate something that will grow, become something much more significant and gain a critical mass, which will then allow the faculty, the university, to do something genuinely unique in Australia. So as part of that, we conceived of the structure as this. That's me in the center, like a spider. Public engagement, institutional issues, intellectual issues, curriculum, and outreach. These were the interlinking issues that the collective would deal with. For this year, though, we decided to identify 4 themes: curriculum, research and scholarship, institutional issues, outreach, and activism. Outreach and activism and research and scholarship would focus on particular achievable issues, achievable projects within this year, 2022, whereas curriculum and institutional issues will prepare the ground for projects that will start next year. So we staggered the timeline, we staggered what's the other word? The timeline. And this is the leadership. And I would like you to pay attention to the variety, the sheer, the ways in which almost every school is being represented, which is fantastic. But not only that, we also have colleagues, both academic and professional colleagues, as well as research students. I draw enormous satisfaction and reassurance from this, because this means that this project can go ahead, provided we get support next year onwards. So we have had quite a few activities this year. I don't have time to go through this, but I will be here. You can ask me questions afterwards during the reception. And I know that I don't need to labor this point, but I will anyway, because it is important. It is important to recognize that race is not just an esoteric or an arcane issue, that it is absolutely central to all those issues that are current, that are urgent, like climate change, health issues, economy, politics, urban planning, security and justice. And behind these all are issues such as representation, representation by, representations of, as well as ethical, philosophical, conceptual issues. That is why we were a bit surprised. Well, I have been in Australia since 2004, so perhaps I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was, that there was not a single university, as far as we are aware, that offers a degree in race-related issues. That is why we started thinking of putting together a curriculum, a major in, we haven't yet decided on the title. It could be anything ranging from race and culture studies to race, culture, politics, to black studies. We haven't yet decided. So our colleague, Mengistu Mbera, and I have been working on this along with a lot of support from research students, as well as the ADA student experience team. We have held meetings with heads of school, deputy heads of school, ADA program reviews, leads, with the Director of Education, Innovation and Engagement, as well as focus group discussions with students. And we've received only positive encouragement, actually. We initially wanted to, because we are both kind of cautious people, we wanted to start with a minor, but we've been encouraged to start with a major. We hope to launch the major in 2024, and we'll be doing the majority of the work next year. I'll stop here and invite my lovely colleagues, Astrid and Andrew, to talk about scholarship and research. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Hari. Thanks, everyone. And a big thanks also to Carly and Melody and the rest of the Innovation Hub team for all the support over the course of the year. We have, unfortunately, not solved the issue of racism this year. But this theme, the race and the scholarship and research theme, kind of begins from the proposition that despite the ubiquity of race as a concept and a term that is invoked to describe many things, it is commonly misunderstood. And so we wanted to kind of think about how we can build across the faculty conversations and activities that promote a richer and deeper and more critical understanding of what race is and what racialization is, and of course what racism is. So race has no biological essence, but arises from a process of ascription. It is not an identity, but something that is ascribed to people. Race, as the cultural theorist Stuart Hall famously said, is a floating signifier, a concept that is continually reinvented through shifting discursive practices. And as such, racism is also not simply a state of mind, such as intolerance or bigotry, but a social practice which simultaneously produces acts of racial ascription and justification for those acts. In other words, racism describes actions that produce the fiction of race and ideologies that naturalize that fiction, those fictions. So this project, the scholarship and research theme, looked to develop ways through conversation initially, and then through a range of activities that included a seminar series and HDR workshops, to think exactly and more precisely about what race is and how we attend to it as a shifting and floating signifier. The Antiracism Collective is committed to the study of racialization and racism, and it's attentive to the way that these concepts are shaped by economic, political, cultural, and historical forces. The collective understands race-critical scholarship to include such things as settler colonialism and imperialism, race and its intersections with gender and class, race in and as technology, and crucially, anti-racist struggles. In the context of ongoing culture wars, this study remains a vital project in the ongoing work of producing more just futures, and we have hoped to contribute something small to that ongoing work this year. The collective seeks to support and showcase scholarship on race by staff from within the university, as well as to stage conversations about those topics with staff and scholars from around the world. And finally, we have looked to develop some resources for staff to use in their classrooms, from videos to reference materials that can animate discussions around anti-racism across diverse disciplines. So today we'll just very briefly summarise the two primary activities that we undertook as part of this theme, and I'll hand over to Astrid to do so.
Thank you. And I also just want to shout out that in the development of these two projects, we worked with Roanna Gonsalves and Hari to develop the seminar series, and with our HDR co-leads, Shima Sinai and Auni Atue as well. So thank you so much to everyone. Oh, did you change that? So the first was the Antiracism Seminar Series, which is ongoing. So the seminar series has been conceived as a public-facing, free, online program that showcases leading scholars on race, anti-racism from UNSW and beyond. The series began with a discussion facilitated by Andrew Brooks and me with Professor Tony Birch from Victoria University on Aboriginal history, resistance and sovereignty. And it was followed up by the second seminar, a discussion with Associate Professor Olufemi O. Taiwo from Georgetown University in Washington, DC, on his recent book, Elite Capture: How the Powerful Took Over Identity Politics and Everything Else. The last two seminars for the year are upcoming. Next Monday, we'll have Associate Professor Maria Giannakopoulos from UNSW's Law and Justice faculty, speaking about violence, law and colonialism, and then Tabitha Lean, an independent scholar and lived experience abolitionist activist, will be speaking to us about whatever she wants. We haven't worked that out yet. And each seminar has been recorded and is uploaded to YouTube and will very shortly be available from the Antiracism Collective website. So watch that space. Who's controlling that? Me. Oh, okay. Don't give me a microphone. Okay, can you go to the... Oh, you are on it. Okay, yep. So the second project was the HDR workshop. So this workshop was programmed during the recent ADA HDR conference, which was held... well, the conference was online, but we held it in person on Paddington campus, with the aim of forging connections between high degree research candidates working on questions of race and with each other as well as with staff. It featured presentations by ADA academic staff, Dr. Andrew Brooks from the School of Arts and Media and Dr. Lana Tatur from the School of Social Sciences. And as I mentioned, the workshop was developed in collaboration with our HDR theme co-leads, Auni and Shima, and in consultation with the cohort who were invited to participate in a survey that then went on to shape the workshop design and delivery. The workshop began with each participant introducing themselves via their research and a key concept or problem that they grapple with in their research to do with race. This was followed by short presentations by Andrew and Lana, which opened into a really amazing, rigorous discussion. The workshop ultimately identified a critical need for a space to continue these discussions around race and anti-racism and to establish collaborative terms of reference for anti-racist scholarship. A second workshop is therefore planned for Term 1 in 2023. And some of the key concepts that emerged from the workshop and that more or less describe both the breadth of projects represented but also some of the key connections or shared concerns were racial capitalism, race and settler colonialism, policing and incarceration, ethno-nationalism and white supremacy, and infrastructure broadly conceived. And that's it. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you very much for that. I myself would like to acknowledge that I am on unceded land, and I am grateful for those who came before us and who took care of it, and learning was happening way before any of us came along, so thank you very much. For the outreach activism theme, we decided to go with two different projects. So the first one is the First Nation Literature for Children Book Club, And the second one is the Refugee and Asylum Seeker Students Advocacy Group. So Catherine and I will be talking about that, but just wanted to note that there are other members as part of the theme that had help with that. We have Keiko and Bianca in the audience as well as part of that, and we have Shima and Francis who's going to be talking about the Refugee and Asylum Seekers Advocacy Group. So you may have seen at the back our table, which sort of highlight the key books that we focus on. And I guess our focus really was looking at how to continue conversations that were happening in the faculty. We had the reflexivity workshops and training and professional development that was happening. So we wanted to really provide a space to continue those conversations. And we thought a great way to do that would be to use children's books. Children's books have a lot of complex things in them sometimes, and I think a lot of people struggle on how do you have very complex, and I don't want to say difficult conversation, but courageous conversations with our children. If we want to tackle racism and tackle all the other factors and things that come with racism, we need to start much younger. And I think as parents, as carers, or you have sisters and brothers, nieces and nephews, we have children in our lives. We want to make sure we can have these conversations with them in a very safe way, but also at the age-appropriate way. So again, discussion of very complex topic. How do we do that? Next. Oh, you did it already. Great, thank you. So these were the goals that we were trying to achieve. Again, how do we tackle complex problems? I think Claire mentioning that, but we really wanted to use these children's books to start conversation much younger than I think initially starting at the university level. So I'll pass along to Catherine.
Yeah, so some of the outcomes were really impressive, and if you have time at the end to sort of stand at the back and watch the video, we've called some quotes and things like that from participants that are longer than the one that you can see here. But I think this quote really speaks to the heart of the fact that you actually can, and people did, end up having conversations about really difficult things and complex things and things that you might not have gone into the conversation thinking, oh, a 3-year-old can handle this, or a 4 or an 8-year-old can talk about settler colonialism, but actually those conversations can happen and be really productive. And so it was really gratifying to meet with colleagues and also to see the reverberations of a lot of these conversations happen with kids who are then going into their schools, and parents who are talking with other parents, and people having these conversations in all different aspects of their lives. And I was just talking to one of our colleagues in the audience about her daughter going to school and reading one of the books from the series and talking to the principal of her school about that, and sort of engaging in those conversations as well. So the ripple effects are definitely happening. And so we had 5 sessions, 1 for each book, and we're going to have 1 more next week. So if you didn't make it along, please, the QR code on here or on the flyer on the table is for a session on Monday where we're going to be revisiting the discussion of Daybreak and talking a little more about the entire series in more than 3 minutes. And the other thing that we did was created a discussion guide that's not specific to any one of the books, but some guiding questions and principles for parents or carers or people who want to read these books with children and engage in these conversations, or with your friends and family. So there's some prompts and some suggestions and other things that you can commit to do to help fight racism in your own sphere, your own world. And we're also working with the UNSW Library to create a featured collection of these texts and taking suggestions from others of you as to the special or meaningful books and cultural texts and children's literature that has been important to your family's identity. So that's about it, and I'll pass on to Shima and Francis.
In the Refugee and Asylum Seeker Student Advocacy Group, we are a group of HDR students, academic staff, and professional staff. We initiated this project because voices of RAS students were missing in the university policies. We developed 3 main goals. First, to create a self-determined community of RAS students at UNSW. Second, to create a network of support for the students. And third, to build institutional support for the students at UNSW. Throughout the year, we had many meetings and discussions to develop a grassroots approach. We built relationships with several groups, organizations, and individuals. However, the challenge was identifying RAS students at UNSW. Our main achievement is identifying and working with a group of students with lived experience who were independently developing a project to support RAS students. We believe that we should work with this group and support this group. Now I hand over to Francis, who is going to explain about the project.
Thank you. Studying in New South Wales for the past 7 years, doing my Bachelor of Social Work and Criminology, highlighted to me the challenges students like me from a refugee background we face. So as someone like coming from that background, I feel like the university neglects us, and that's the university blind spot. And we create this project in our independent way for us to support other students coming to New South Wales University and also in other universities across New South Wales and in other states. So we put on as Afritech for us to support students in their learning, self-managed learning, because we kind of see the lapses we are in. We not kind of provided the support we needed to further our university studies. Especially for me, language was one of the key areas that I struggle with. Our vision is for us to take education, mental health support, mentorship to those sick that need it and that matters to them, no matter where they are. So we intend to connect with, to bridge the gap and connect with other students that are going through the similar situation. My experience in New South Wales for the past 7 years studying dual degree, I don't need to spend 7 years doing that. If I have the proper support from the university, we are committed to facilitate the realization of potentials among us and elevate students from refugee backgrounds, regardless of their skin color. Our team is composed of members that have successfully overcome such challenges like me, that I'm graduating from New South Wales University because of my diligence and resilience that put me through. I feel like it's more important for me to graduate after dropping out from New South Wales twice and coming back. So I look back again at my joining, I said, we need to make a change and work with the university hand in gloves to resolve these issues. You can't talk about students from refugee backgrounds if we will not be part of the solution on the table addressing those issues.
Thank you, Francis, for sharing with us your lived experiences. I'm Srinjoy. I'm one of the co-leads of the Institutional Themes Project. Our Dean, Claire, identified the ADA Foundation strategy, which envisions a better future for the world and improving life on Earth. But change often starts at home. Our actions and interventions to create transformative change out there may lack legitimacy if we don't practice what we preach here. The institution's theme seeks to highlight and problematize current policies and governance mechanisms at UNSW to create a better sense of belonging for non-white staff. The institution's theme seeks to investigate whether UNSW policies and practices on anti-racism are adequate. Fundamentally, this theme is interested in ensuring due recognition and dignity for persons of color working in this noble profession and sector. So, what are our theme's objectives? We are collecting data to improve and enhance how UNSW addresses problems of racism and racialization, identify gaps and limitations in policies and practices to create an improved sense of belonging among staff and students, investigate racialization of international students and domestic students of color, advocate for the appointment of persons of color in leadership positions, and disrupt practices of normalizing whiteness. Very briefly, normalizing whiteness refers to the way that white people, their customs, culture, and beliefs operate as the standard by which all other groups are compared. The normalization of white racial identity creates a culture where non-white persons are seen as inferior or as outsiders or perhaps even abnormal. So how will we collect data and information? We will do so by conducting surveys, by conducting focus group discussions, individual meetings with staff and students, and by dialoguing with various committees and networks, such as the UNSW Early Career Academic Network, the Women in Research Network, the Student Representative Council, the University of New South Wales Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Network, and many more. Our initial findings identify concerns regarding possible gaps between UNSW's EDI policy and practice. For example, less than 15% of persons of color hold leadership positions in UNSW, and less than 5% of First Nations colleagues hold such positions. Our staff have also raised concerns with UNSW's decision to publish student experience surveys, which research has shown can be discriminatory. On that note, I'd like to invite back Hari to the stage to wrap up our presentation. Thank you very much.
Aren't they terrific? It's been a privilege working with them, and I know it's a thing to say, an empty thing to say, but I mean that genuinely. It's been a terrific experience. These are all fabulous people, and this is just a small sample of the colleagues and students that we've had the privilege to work with. I just want to finish with a couple of things. In terms of public engagement, I've been having conversations with a terrific advocacy group called Women of Colour Australia, and we are also developing a discussion with SBS. SBS wants me to run a series of workshops, not only on audience research, which was what my PhD was on so many years ago, but also they have more ambitious plans. They want to engage both critically, conceptually, as well as in practical terms with issues of multiculturalism, First Nations, and race. So these are projects that we are developing in terms of public engagement. If you'd like to collaborate, if you'd like to contribute in any way, this is my email, and if you click, I'm a technophobe. I'm a professor of media, but I'm a technophobe. That QR code will take you to the website. Thank you, Carly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to the Antiracism Collective, and also thank you for the opportunity to collaborate with you this year. I would also like to acknowledge Melody Frant for her work as the project manager on this project. Thank you, Melody.